What's going to happen this evening? First of all, welcome to the Alma College MFA in Creative Writing virtual open house. What's going to happen this evening is I'm going to speak a little bit about our amazing low residency MFA program. And then I will introduce to you our faculty mentor, the award-winning writer, Karen Bender, who has a writing lesson for you this evening. Once the writing lesson is over, we will open it up for Q&A toward the end of the program. So thank you all for being here this evening. I'm going to share my screen and we can get started. So this is a new program, and this will be our first residency. Alma College is a wonderful college located in Alma, Michigan, which, if you know the Mitten, it is right smack dab in the middle of Michigan, about an hour north of Lansing. Alma College has a 135-year history of being steeped in the liberal arts. And when they began to develop graduate programs, it was only natural that that first graduate program should be a program in the arts, a Master of Fine Arts. And in this case, it is the MFA in Creative Writing. This is a low residency program, which means you don't have to move to Michigan and you don't have to upend your life. This is a 2-year degree where you are only required to be present twice a year for 2 10-day residencies, one in the summer, one in the winter. I will talk about those locations in a moment. At those 10-day residencies, the first one will be coming up in June 17th through the 27th. It will be a 10-day intensive. There will be lectures, just as the one, similar to the one you'll receive tonight. Lectures, readings, panel discussions about the publishing industry. And during that time, you will be assigned a mentor who will help you to develop a study plan for the coming term. That plan will consist of a reading list and a schedule where you will submit 5 monthly packets, one a month for 5 months, consisting of about 25, maybe even 35 pages of creative and critical work. That critical work will be craft papers based on your reading of both literature and craft texts. So over the course of the 2 years in the program, upon graduation, your proficiency in writing is just going to skyrocket because you will be that focused writing.
I'm so confused.
Submitting work. Ellen, are you okay?
Sorry, no, I was just sorry. I was trying to put my head. Sorry.
Okay, just checking. Upon graduation, your writing will just skyrocket because you will have been so focused on it for 2 years, submitting work every month for 2 years. You'll be working with different faculty members, experimenting in genre if you're interested in that, but you will have such a strong understanding of craft, and you will also have the ability to lecture on technique because one of the requirements will be that you submit a critical thesis and deliver that thesis as a lecture. You'll be able to read critically, think critically, and you'll have a knowledge of the publishing industry from small presses all the way up to the big 5 publishing houses in New York City, and thinking about where your writing fits into the whole spectrum of publishing and how you may want to be published and what you may want to do after graduation. You may want to teach in the prison system. You may want to start a literary journal. We'll cover all of these things. We will have visiting writers and publishing experts throughout the residency. And our first big visiting writer will be the US Poet Laureate Joy Harjo. She's going to kick off our residency. She'll be there right at the very beginning to deliver a craft lecture just for our students. And then in the evening, we will be hosting a public reading. And she is a fabulous public reader. I've been present in her readings before. She also plays saxophone, which is an awesome thing. So I hope you can be there to experience that. Now, about our residencies. As I mentioned, there are two. The summer ones will be held on the Alma campus. The winter ones cannot be at Alma because the undergraduates will be in the residential housing. So our winter residencies will be at the Ralph A. McMullen Center, and that'll be about an hour north of Alma. It's a beautiful conference center with beautiful accommodations. They have winter activities for us. There will be snowshoeing, cross-country skiing. It's on the shore of a beautiful lake. So that'll be our winter home. Starting in January 2023, you will have the option of taking winter residency at Oxford University in England. I wanted to show you some of the accommodation in the Wright Lapine Opera House, which is where we will be at Alma, because, well, I know I've had questions about it, but I also know from personal experience of visiting low residency MFAs, I like to brag that we have, I think, the best housing of any low residency MFA. So let me show you. The Wright Lapine Opera House is actually a facility that Alma bought and renovated. It was an historic opera house that burned down, and Alma bought it and renovated it. And it is now this beautiful facility. What you're seeing here, and this is on the left, that's a smaller picture of the ballroom. And this is another picture of the ballroom when they changed the seating right before fall classes started. This is the social distancing seating that was created in this space. So I'll show you another picture of it. You see it's just a beautiful room full of windows and light. This will be our main room where we will have our lectures and our readings. And this may be reconfigured again for us this summer. We'll figure that out once we have our numbers and our schedule. This is one of the rooms. We'll have different workshop rooms on campus, but this is one of the workshop rooms in the Opera House. Again, just wonderful windows. It's full of light, very airy, and a nice place to be with your classmates going over work, reading work on summer afternoons. The accommodations. So first, there are general common areas. So these are common areas where people could just hang out in the evenings. These aren't attached to any particular room. You see there's TV. So there are a couple of different areas like this in the Opera House. Now, the rooms are apartment style pods. So each room has its own common area and a kitchen like this. And off of this area, there are single bedrooms. So these pods may have 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and they have their own, each pod has its own bathroom. Here's another view of, this is a different kitchen. So you see, it's amazing. It's really beautiful. This is what one of the bedrooms looks like. Again, plenty of room. You're not squashed in there. And I'm excited, you know, there's laundry. I know that that's a silly thing to be excited about, but there's laundry in the building. You don't have to go anywhere. It's a beautiful laundry facility. And I think that's all the pictures. Yes, that's all the pictures. So briefly, just to go over the degree options, it's been my experience that you may go into a low residency MFA wanting to study one genre, and just because you attend lectures by all the genres, you may find yourself drawn to study another. I know that happened with me. I ended up with a dual genre degree studying fiction and nonfiction. So you can stick with a single genre and get your degree in that genre. It's 2 years. You can dip your toe in and study for 1 semester a second genre, and that would still be 2 years. If you want a dual genre concentration where you would study, say, fiction and poetry or poetry and nonfiction, then you would pick a major genre and one to be your minor genre. You would spend 3 terms in the major, 2 terms in the minor. It would be 2.5 years. you would be expected to deliver a critical thesis in one of the genres and a creative thesis in both genres. So it is a lot of work, but it's very gratifying. And I'm grateful that I did the dual genre, but it's there if you feel that you want to do something like that. Tuition is $9,000 a term. Housing and meals, $1,250. When we go to the Roscommon Center, there are single rooms available there, and they have an added fee for that. If you are applying for federal student aid, we recommend that you fill out the FAFSA form. We also have the Alma College Refer a Writer Award, and that's on our website. So before you apply, you would have someone refer you. So fill out the form with your name on it. And if you join us as a student, you would get a $2,000 scholarship in that person's name, whoever referred you. That's a really cool program. I'm really excited about that. We also have, and Katie can let us know how. Katie is on the line if you have questions about this at the end. There are also payment plans available, and she can tell you, if you're interested in that, how to learn more about that. The application process, the deadline is coming up May 1st for the upcoming June residency. We would need transcripts from each college or university attended, your CV or resume, a creative writing sample, about 25 pages or 10 pages of poetry. And this would be something that you've worked on, something that you're curious to workshop perhaps when you get here, but show us what you can do. Now, we know that you're coming because you want to learn more about your writing. So I know it's not necessarily going to be perfect, but we do want to see that you have proficiency and potential. We want a personal essay that talks about your interest in the program, what you hope to learn, your strengths and weaknesses as a writer, your goals for the program, and any additional experience you feel that you have to offer the artistic community that we're building here. Also a literature essay, which basically discusses the books that you like to read and the writers that have influenced you in your writing. And also 2 letters of recommendation. And some of you I know have already downloaded the MFA Decision Journal. This is a document that's on our website, basically to help you think through the process of applying for an MFA. Last but not least, our fabulous faculty. And I'm going to introduce Karen Bender to you in a moment, but I will just give you a brief rundown. The people on the left are our prose faculty, fiction and nonfiction. The people on the right are our poetry faculty. So we have Matthew Gavin Frank, Donald Quist, Anna Clark, Kiese Lehman, who won't be joining us until next year, and Donielle Clayton. Our poets, Benjamin Garcia, Leslie Contreras Schwartz, who also teaches nonfiction, and James Daniels. Now, just so you know, we are actually going to do another open house event next week, on next Tuesday, the 13th, for poets only. If you're interested in poetry, if you want to be a poet or you just like to listen to poetry, it's National Poetry Month. April is National Poetry Month. So this is our celebration and a chance for you to get to hear the fabulous work of our poets. Now I'm going to introduce you to your instructor for this evening, our fiction instructor, Karen E. Bender. Now, Karen is the author of 2 story collections, Refund, which was a finalist for the National Book Award in Fiction, and shortlisted for the Frank O'Connor International Story Prize, and longlisted for the Story Prize. Her collection, The New Order, was longlisted for the Story Prize. Her novels are Like Normal People, which was a Washington Post Book of the Year and a Los Angeles Times bestseller, and A Town of Empty Rooms. Her fiction has appeared in magazines including The New Yorker, Granta, Plowshares, the Yale Review, the Harvard Review, Zoetrope, Electric Literature, Guernica, and others, and has been reprinted in Best American Short Stories. Also Best American Mystery Stories and New Stories from the South, the year's best. Karen has won 3 pushcart prizes. Her work has been read at Selected Shorts, which if you've never heard it, it's a fabulous short story reading series that you hear on NPR, and it's recorded at Symphony Space in New York City. And her work has been read there by Joanne Woodward and by LeVar Burton on LeVar Burton Reads. She has received grants from the Rona Jaffe Foundation and the National Endowment of the Arts. She is the visiting distinguished professor of creative writing at Holland University and has also taught in the creative writing programs at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, the University of Iowa, and at the MFA program at Warren Wilson College. She is the fiction editor of the literary journal Scoundrel Time, and her website is karenebender.com. Thank you for being here with us, Karen, and I hand it over to you for our lesson. Let me stop the screen sharing here. And I hand it over to you.
Yay. Thank you, Sophfronia. I've been getting messages that my internet is unstable. So if it looks like I'm freezing, Sophfronia, let me know and maybe I'll turn off my video. But right now I think it's okay. Yeah, I'm so excited to be part of this program with the visionary Sophfronia Scott and this amazing faculty that she's put together. I think it's going to be just a great program. And today I just want to do this little sample of a class, which is not exactly what I would teach. I would, what I would do at Alma would be a workshop, and we would discuss your work. But what this will show is just kind of how I view craft. And I think good writing is ultimately honest writing. It's writing stuff that you feel like you have to say. It doesn't have to be literally true, but it needs to be emotionally true. And that, when you're really writing something that's important to you, it's something that you feel like you need to share with the world, and the world you haven't read it the way that it needs to be said. So, and the vehicle for this honesty is technique, craft techniques. And one of these is sensory detail. So sensory detail is one of my favorite craft elements. I'm just going to get, I don't know if you guys have the handouts, but I'm just going to share my screen and get on a handout on sensory detail that I have. So sensory detail is the raw material of the world. It's I think the most interesting form of specific detail. It's basically the details of the senses. It's what you see and smell and taste and touch and hear. It's the screech of truck brakes on the street. It's the way red traffic lights reflect in the wet street after the rain. It's the way the city smells in the summer or the winter. It's the way light looks at a particular time of day. Sensory detail is a form of specific detail, and it's how you view the world, how you, see things in a way. I have a daughter who's actually an amazing poet. And one day when she was about 10, we went to the store J. Crew, which was, has a nice clothes. And so we went in there and she sort of was there and she smelled and she said, "It smells like old hot dogs." And I was like, she's right. And it was interesting because she was very aware, she didn't imagine that it had some other smell. She just smelled the way it really smelled. And I think that's the thing, as a writer, we need to perceive the world the way that we see it, not the way that we're told to see it, but how we see it. Sensory detail is how we describe the world as sticky. Let's see. And one way to learn to use sensory detail is begin to pay close attention to the world around you. I think as children, we come into the world and it's all sensory, right? Babies, encounter the world in a way that's everything is the senses. And then as adults, we tend to sort of press down, our perceptions of the sensory world because we just have to get through our day. But I think if you really start seeing what does it smell like when you go down the street? What does it sound like when you're, listening to someone cook or, or anything, then you really start kind of participating in the world in a different way. one thing to do is keep a sensory detailed diary, and really see, you know, what are different ways that you see the world in a sensory way. One thing I think is important as a writer is writing is a conversation with what we read. So one thing I would do as a teacher, I would find out what books, you know, you're interested in, what your taste is, what books have inspired you, and then try and find other books that might be similar, or books that will also be a little different to push you. But you learn craft by studying how other writers do it. So here, one of my favorite writers is a writer named John Cheever. And here's a story, O City of Broken Dreams, that he wrote that I think is just incredible in terms of its sensory detail. So Cheever writes about these characters, the Malloys. This was published in, I think, the late 50s or early 60s. They were coming from Indiana to New York, and Everett Malloy thinks he's going to sell a Broadway play. He wants to sell a play to Broadway. And he's here with his daughter, Mildred Rose, and his wife, Alice. So this is our first time to New York. They've taken the train, and they come out of the train station, Grand Central, and they walk into the streets of New York. So this is the first time they've been in this place that they've heard about, and they're hoping they're going to strike it rich. So I'm looking at sensory detail and how Cheever uses it. You have, as a Malloy stepped from the train, Alice noticed that the paving deep in the station had a frosty glitter, and she wondered if diamonds had been ground into the concrete. This is one of my favorite details ever in fiction, because it says so much about them. Number one, it's really perceiving, you know, what does it look like? What does the pavement look like in New York? The diamonds are glittery, or it looks glittery. You know, the fact she thinks diamonds are ground into the concrete. What does it say about Alice as a character? Does anyone want to volunteer what they think, what it shows about Alice? I can't see all of you, so you just could jump in if you want. Any ideas? Or is everyone a little bit shy right now?
No, well,
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
This
go
is
ahead.
Patricia. Hi, Karen.
Right.
As soon as I saw the diamonds had been ground into the concrete, I'm thinking a jewelry store, or, you know, she's used to, or she's curious about the finer things in life. She has interest in jewelry or grand living, or something to that nature.
Mhm. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the idea is you think about what are associations we have with diamonds, right? They're like really valuable, they're glittery, you know, they're the finer things in life. So she wonders if they're in the concrete, which they're not, you know, but she's thinking it. So it shows that she's kind of hopeful, you know, and she's kind of like having these hopes for New York too. She's afraid, let's see, they're walking around New York, then they go to their destination, the Hotel Mentone. It was a dark place with malodorous chambers, miserable food, and a lobby ceiling decorated with as much gilt and gesso as the Vatican chapels. What do you see? What do you think they're thinking about the Hotel Mentone from that description?
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, awesome.
Considering I haven't figured out what gesso is. It's something I think my husband uses to paint with, and it gives to me it's not welcoming. It's sort of like it sucks the life out of your soul, and the miserable food. It's almost like a very, very bad dream, and she's actually living it and trying to figure out, is this going to be a place that is in contrast actually to the diamonds and the concrete. So it's almost like a tease that, you know, they get off the train and here's this concrete where the ground looks amazing to her, and she could be excited only to get deflated when they get to the hotel because of the contrast.
Also, sorry,
Yeah.
here, let me actually turn
Go ahead.
But yeah, so I'm sorry, yeah, here's my face. I really like the proximity of those diamonds to the gilt and the gesso and everything. And then the thing that really nails it for me is the Mentone was advertised on railroad station hoardings all through the West. So there'd been like random advertisements like, yo, you got to stay here, it's going to be the best thing, right? But people who ride the train are going to be the kind of people that, so there's a really complex thing going on where we see those diamonds and everything, and then we see the gesso and the gilt and the everything else, and we realize that, and maybe Alice also is realizing this too, that those diamonds may or may not have been false, right? Because back in the previous paragraph, the first thing she said after she noticed the diamonds was, if they find out we're green, they'll fleece us.
Mhm.
So you have a progression of these three items that are being attributed to Alice, that add at the very least a duality to her taking in her new New York surroundings.
Awesome.
Can I just add, and when she mentioned the Vatican chapels, you have this whole image of what the Vatican, very elaborate, is. And it just seemed, it was like they're coming out of the country into the Big Apple, and it was like out of her element, or maybe she was putting her nose up at maybe thinking I'm not good enough, so I'll just say it's not a nice place. That's what I got out of that.
Awesome. Wonderful insight to all of you. Yeah, I mean, I think what you guys are all finding out is looking at juxtaposition, which is putting different types of sensory details against each other to create kind of a textured feel. You have the diamonds, which are, kind of looking at kind of grandiose and hopeful. And then you have like the kind of malodorous chambers and the miserable food. And then the Vatican, which is kind of grand, those are like all kind of against, placed, next to each other. So we get this feeling that they're both hopeful, and also the place is maybe a little problematic, we have, and this is all sensory, this is all through, and then we have the window looked onto a brick wall, but when she raised it, she could hear the noise of traffic. And it sounded as it had sounded in the station, like the irresistible and titanic voice of life itself. It feels, like, they just feel like something really big is going to happen here, right? I'm gonna just go forward a little bit and find one more thing I want you to see. Is page 50. Where is it? Okay, right. So then I'm scooting forward. Yeah, y'all should have this. So Everett comes. He's kind of he's kind of cheated by various people that he meets. He's vulnerable and he's kind of naive. So then he's told to go to this place, the Hauser Agency. And I just want to look at the description of the office and what you learn about the office from this description. So the Hauser Agency, at the end of a long corridor, there was a pair of bronze doors fastened by a bifurcated eagle. Everts turned the wings of the imperial bird and stepped into a lofty manor hall. The paneling on its walls was worm-pitted and white with rot. In the distance, behind a small glass window, he saw a woman wearing earphones. He walked over to her, told her his business, and was asked to sit down. He sat on a leather sofa and lighted a cigarette. The richness of the hall impressed him profoundly. Then he noticed the sofa was covered with dust. So were the table, the magazines on it, the lamp, and the bronze cast of Rodin's Les Bazaars. Everything in the bathroom was covered with dust. He noticed at the same time the peculiar stillness of the hall. All the usual noises of an office were lacking. Into the stillness from the distant earth rose the recorded music from the skating rink where a carillon played "Joy to the World, the Lord has come." The magazines on the table besides the sofa were all 5 years old. So what do you know about this office from these descriptions?
Appearance is not the focus. That is not what it's about. As I was listening to you, I'm trying to keep up with where those were. I kept getting the appearance of the office is not the focus. it is what happens in the environment that is more important to the inhabitants than the appearance. But there's also some mention to prestige and importance. There's some power, something something heavy is happening in that office, but it's definitely not the appearance. It's more about what happens behind the doors than, coming into this place of power to be overwhelmed. And he notices that the magazines are 5 years old. That's very, very telling in itself, as well as with the dust all over the place. And it was something else that caught me, the music in the background. Joy to the world. There's some thinking outside of the box happening in that environment as well.
Good, thank you. Yeah, the dust
Mhm.
says so much. Good. Any other perceptions on the office? Any juxtapositions?
I
Do you
think that the dust, in that it's kind of the juxtaposition between these great expectations and the kind of failing reality of being in New York and the Big Apple as a whole. And that at one time there were amazing things, great things happening in this really big, grand building, but right now it's the expectation versus reality, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, good.
Also the phrase bifurcated eagle, right? Like, we know that there's something that is going to be bifurcated, right? Literally, we're going through the motion of that happening. But then when you hear eagle, I feel like there's something menacing, but also propaganda, right? So they're selling you an American dream. They're doing this, but they're bifurcating it. Also, like bronze door, because bronze comes up a lot. Like everything it's not gold and gilded, it's bronze, and it makes me feel like it's sort of a callback to like an era past, right? Without having to say the phrase Bronze Age, everything in here gives off the vibe of an age that has outused or or is not useful technologically anymore, at the very least, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, but I would say in the midst of the dirtiness, the dust, there's joy in the distance. And so even the words that they use, and there's fun, there's a skating rink, but right now in this place, it's just dirty. And so it's just given the opposite of where he is. And there's something joyful is gonna happen if he just gets through this mess.
Great.
Yeah, along with those, I wanted to touch on the walls, the worn and pitted with white rot. Now, I don't think I've ever seen white rot in a long time, but the visual is that it's really, really old, and maybe I think rot comes from moisture damage, I think. So and like Kat said, there's some like disappointment from times past, and instead of the bronze could also signify, as she led into, the Bronze Age, which is, maybe some of these clues could tie into that point in time, which is past.
These are all such good insights. Yeah, I think the thing is, you think about sensory, right? We look at the rotted wall, the eagle, the bifurcated eagle, the fact that it's bronze, like really heavy and kind of like metal and like solid, and then you have all the dust, in the room and the old magazines, and then yet there's still, you hear joy to the world. So it's such a layered description. You see how much work he does just with those sensory details. And then what happened, nothing good happens, sadly, forever. But basically, so what I want you to do now is to write something. And what I want you to write using sensory details is something about a memorable place in your character's life. And as a fiction writer, I always say your character, though it can be you if you want, I'll always assume it's fiction. But that it's someplace the character loves or hates, it's just important to them, but just show it to us in terms of sensory detail. So what I want to do is take 10 minutes. You guys can write for 10 minutes, 7:30, say come back at 7:47. And then if anyone wants to share them, if we have time to share, we can do that, either they're reading them or putting them in the chat. So I do that with classes, is people can put like a little paragraph in the chat and we can just look and see, you know, what we want to know more about this place. But I think, but just as a sample in terms of how I teach, we look at great works like Cheever or you know, many other writers that are great. Some others for sensory detail who I love are Jamaica Kincaid, Annie John is just a wonderful book. Yoko Ogawa has a story, The Last Hours of the Bengal Tiger, you can find online, which is just wonderful. Dennis Johnson, story collection, Jesus' Son, amazing sensory detail. So there's so many writers that use it well, and we'll read them and then find ways for you to find, you know, how to use it in your own work. So let's take 10 minutes. What I usually do is turn off my video and also the microphone so that you have privacy, and then 10 minutes we'll come back and share. Okay, thanks. So let's all come back. If you want to turn on your screens again. Yay. So does anyone want to share theirs? I would love to hear if you want to either put it in the chat or you can read it. Usually what I do in class is I have people listen and say what's working for them. Like, what are the lines that jump out at them? What do they want to know more about? What's really vivid? So does anyone want to share theirs? I'd love to hear some. Trisha, oh, wonderful. Okay, do you want to oh, you can't hear. Can you, wait, it won't unmute? Oh, Sophfronia,
I can't see.
oh, there you go. Oh, you can't see, oh.
Yeah, I can see, but I'm trying to find the, oh, wait,
So
never mind. I figured it out.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. Am I like still volunteering or something?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, okay. That was hard. That was really hard. So it's kind of all over the place, but because I don't have a character. But what came to me was she awakened with morning dew, crusty eyes, long lean legs slithering across the soft warmed mattress pockets. Her toes unraveled themselves, disconnecting slowly, coating the sheets. Casting her legs against the warm, stiff sheets. I'm sorry, her legs are paddles gliding across the gel-packed mattress pockets, making their way to the other side.
Oh, beautiful. I love the toes unravel themselves. Yeah. Unravel is a wonderful verb there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, I want to hear more.
I don't know. I'll see if I could get some more for you, but that's what I came with.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
Here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Lisa, thank you.
Lachey wandered off down the rickety steps, tiptoeing over rocks covered with leaves dampened by pellets of mushy mildew. She slipped on the ice, which melted like vanilla ice cream, quickly turned into swirled chocolate dots. Her ankle twisted like a brown stale salty pretzel at the amusement park. She screamed out at the top of her lungs, squinching her face so that her nose expanding, causing her eyes to shut tight, her belly rising like a balloon. She was disappointed that I didn't finish.
Good. Oh, that was a great start. I mean, I can really see the ice, melting like vanilla ice cream is really clear. And then, her face scrunching up and then, the belly like a balloon. Wonderful. You can really
I
see.
just made that up.
It's great. It's wonderful. Good. Thank you. Anyone else?
Sure,
Um,
I can go.
well, yeah. Oh, one more? Okay. Okay, great.
Blake arrived in Carlisle, although it was not the homecoming he had anticipated. The salty air filled his nostrils, reminding him of the many voyages he had made across the sea. It was a hot, humid type of day, the type of weather which left Blake feeling sticky and in dire need of a shower. Blake slipped off his flip-flops to feel the burn-hot beach flow between his toes before kicking forward and propelling a haze of sand into the air. Blake let out a groan of frustration as he clutched his eyes, which now stung from his own tomfoolery. He wasn't much of a crier, but in this instance, his body reacted automatically. And that's all I got.
Oh, great. I really like the sand creating the haze in the air. You can really see that, and the burn hot sand. Really good. See, it's just as you kind of find ways to kind of just open yourself up to sensory detail, you see it. You really see it, and you really helps you kind of participate in the world in a different way. So thank you for sharing, you guys. And I'll turn it back over to Sophfronia now.
I will unmute. So thank you, Karen. That was amazing. And I hope this will give you all just a taste of what you'll be doing in workshop and some of the things you'll get to explore at the residency. So now this is just an open Q&A for a bit. Does anyone have any questions either about the program or about the exercise or what it's like to work with a faculty mentor, any of the setup for the residency? We can answer.
Awesome. I have a question.
Yes, sir, Tricia.
So the one-to-one faculty, how is that? Is that once we were assigned to someone, I remember you said there would be a schedule. So the schedule outlines like interaction times, deadlines. Can you elaborate on what the initial intro meeting, the pairing, if you will, would be like, and what we could expect?
Yeah, so what'll happen, there will be times on the schedule where you will specifically meet with your mentor because your study plan for the term is due before the end of residency.
Okay.
So you will agree on the schedule. The main deadlines will be when you're turning in those packets, right? So you'll want to know when you have to have that all done. There's also a schedule for when the faculty mentor has to get back to you. Right, so they would have the deadline for when they have to get back to you with the feedback. There would be a midterm evaluation when you both would have to submit forms evaluating how the term is going. This will all be in also Canvas. You would communicate via Canvas, which is a learning management system, and you would email each other through there. You would also basically talk about the boundaries. So, for example, your teacher may say, let's have a midterm call. Otherwise, we will mainly communicate via email. So those are the parameters you will set up during the residency. But the main deadlines will be for those 5 packets.
Okay, so and how because I know one of the things I'm struggling with is where I'm going to take my writing. I haven't figured out if it's fiction and nonfiction. I don't see people in my head having conversations, but how do we arrive at the direction that we want to go into?
Well, ideally, you're coming into that first residency with a genre chosen, at least a genre to start with, right? And that will also be for you whichever piece you submit for workshop. So are you going to submit fiction? Are you going to submit nonfiction? So, but you are going to focus on just one for the term, and that'll be easier for you, easier for your faculty mentor. And then you will progress through the semester, and your faculty mentor, like, it may change. Some of what the goals you have may change depending on
Okay.
what you're submitting. And
Okay.
Karen will speak more to this, but she may say, well, you know, you really need to work on this. So let's go back and do this. Why don't you try writing a short story, a 3-page short story where you work on your sensory detail? But that's how it will progress. And that's one of the reasons why you grow so much, is because you have a person focused on your work and saying, okay, this is great, work on this, try that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good evening. I have a question, and I know it's a brand new program, but I'm wondering, what is the vision for what a community of alumni might look like from the Alma MFA program? Just any sense of what could be expected even beyond the program for alumni?
The whole idea is for this to be an ongoing community that does not end after graduation. So ongoing readings, ongoing online meetings together, regular communications from the school. The interesting thing about Alma, and I noticed this right away when I first came to the campus, is that it very much is like a family. And this is even just the undergraduate portion. Alumni, and actually Katie can speak to this, because Katie you're an alum of Alma, right? And now she works for the college. So there are people who do not leave, and it feels very much like a family. So in thinking about the artistic community, I knew that this would very naturally, you know, yes, artistic communities tend to bond, but I knew, especially because of the work that Alma already puts into the alumni connection, that we are already going to be bound forever. I hope that doesn't sound scary, but we will have an ongoing in touch program for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, John.
I have another question. Oh,
you have to
go
unmute.
ahead, John. No, he can wait. I can wait. I can wait.
You have to unmute, John. Can't hear you.
There, how about that?
That's good.
Okay. I'm a retired pastor and also a retired family systems psychotherapist. My interest when I write is in talking about what's going on inside somebody, in their spirit, in their mind, and in their relationships and within the family system itself. So that's where a lot of my interest lies, and that's what my writing has been. That's where I focus my writing. And I'm an alumni of Alma too.
Oh.
A few years ago,
Yeah.
I graduated in 1971.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we're a very big supporter of Alma, and I was really excited to see this new MFA program for creative writing to get started. So even if I don't end up in being involved in it myself, I want to do what I can to learn about it and to be supportive and to promote it.
Thank you, John. And just so you know, there are other spiritual writers in the room, you know, Lisa Robinson being one of them. Thank you.
Good evening. I have a question. I popped in.
Wait, just a second, Prasanna. Lisa has a hand raised.
No, she could go. I'll ask, because
sorry.
I have a few
Go ahead.
questions. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Prasanna.
Good evening. I had a question. I popped in just about 5 or 6 minutes late, so I apologize if you covered this. How many students are in a cohort, and then how is there interaction between the students, you know, when they're not in residency? What does that look like?
Usually we're aiming for a class of 20 for this initial cohort. And usually the students, well, first of all, on campus, there's going to be events that you will organize amongst yourselves. So student reading, like that type of event to have you bond with each other. But also the students tend to plan their own connection once the residency is over. So like, for example, you know, Artricia may be the first to put up the Facebook group for your cohort, and everybody joins, and you're all cheering each other on and saying, packet 1 done, you're like, packet 2 done, right? And it sticks that way. So when you come back in the winter, it may feel like you were never out of touch.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, that was one of my 4 questions, so thank you, Prasanta. The other question, how are the readings selected? Is that collaboratively, or how is that done?
I'm sorry, the reading.
The readings for that first semester, or yeah, the assignments?
You work on that with your advisor. Karen, can you say more about that? Because Karen was just talking about that, in fact,
Okay.
about how she chooses what you're going to read over the course of the semester.
Yeah. Yeah, when I've taught in a couple other low residency programs, what I've done is I talk to the student, find out who are some of their favorite writers, what are some works that they love, and I'll try and think of works that might kind of be similar, or also what techniques do you want to work on? Like, say a writer says, I really feel like I'm bad at dialogue or something. So I'll think, okay, here are some writers I think use dialogue well. Let's discuss them. And then also I can assign craft books. I mean, there's some really wonderful craft books that can really help kind of help you learn more about different techniques, and can assign those as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah, definitely collaborative.
Okay, and what are you looking for in terms of references? I spoke to somebody, but we wanted to know what are you looking for in a reference letter?
So it doesn't have to be someone who knows your writing.
Okay.
Right? Like, that's always great, but I know that that's not always possible. But we want someone who knows what you're like in collaboration, what you're like in community, maybe someone you've worked with, someone you've done a project with, but basically just someone who can let us know what you'll be like as part of this cohort.
Okay, and then can you say a little more about the Oxford 10 days? What would happen over there?
Yeah, so we would be in residence at one of the universities at Oxford, and it would be just like our workshops in Michigan, except we would have some of the faculty, like a few of our faculty will come with us, but we will be taking lectures with Oxford faculty. We would also have our own tour guide. Her name is Janet Simmons. She is an Oxford alum as well as a travel expert. And so she would also be conducting a literary tour for us of both the university and the town, because some amazing writers came out of Oxford, like Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien. So I love Oxford. It's absolutely gorgeous. So that's what it would be like.
Okay.
And probably hang out at a pub.
Oh,
I love fish and chips. So,
fish and chips.
Gotta go to the pub and have my fish and chips. So.
All right, thank you.
So I have something I'd like to ask about the Oxford residency. Are we able to invite our significant other, our spouse, because it's an overseas trip? Not that they would come to the lectures, but what are the boundaries, I guess, for that, if any?
You would have to get your own housing, because we would be staying in the dorms.
Okay.
So that would be the main thing.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. But so in that case, would it be okay to invite our, like for me, it would be my husband, for him to attend the readings, to share in the experience?
He wouldn't be able to come to the workshops, but readings tend to be open to the public.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that would be the same at Oxford, that the readings would be open to the public, and usually it's the evening events.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, sorry. Weather conditions during that time of year. I'm sure we would get some information about that, preparing to go into another country in the winter time. I do know I've been overseas before. The conditions are, not like here.
Yeah, Janet Simmons will be sending all sorts of information
Okay.
to the trip. Yeah, so exactly that type of information, what to pack, what the weather will be like, any transportation issues. So yeah, you would get that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Ellen.
Hey, sorry again for my interruption. Hopefully you can mute that out in the beginning. I was fiddling with my iPad. Do most people come into these programs? I know yours is new, but you guys are familiar with these MFA or even like a low or not or a normal residency. Do most people come into them with a project they want to accomplish, like they want to work on a memoir, or they have an essay collection, or they have a book or a poetry collection, versus coming in just to learn to be a better writer? I feel like I've heard that you really, maybe it's best to come in with a project that you want to work on rather than just learn craft. I just wonder what the thoughts are on that.
Karen, you can chime in on this as well. I think if you have a project that you would like to work on during the time, that can be a good thing. What's not helpful is if you're coming into the program with a 400-page thing that you've already written and you somehow expect someone to edit that for you. So that's not really going to be a learning process for you. Now, what you can do, and this is, I'll just describe my experience because I got my MFA in a low-res MFA. I knew I was going to write a novel, and I had the idea for it in mind, but there were a lot of things that I wanted to learn when it came to fiction. So during my first semester, I just decided I'm going to work on short stories, just to work on things like dialogue and sensory detail and just how to tell a tight story, because I hadn't written a short story since college practically. So that was just my first semester. Then in the second semester, that's when I started working on in earnest on the novel. Then I switched into nonfiction because I was doing dual genre, and then came back to the novel. So it helped to have something to work on, just so that, I wasn't sitting there every month thinking, okay, what am I going to submit in my packet? So you have something to generate, but it's not necessary. What are your thoughts, Karen?
Wait, tell me the question one more time. I just spaced a little.
Whether or not it's good to come, do you feel you need to have a project to come
Project, right. I mean, I think often, writers come thinking that they want to write one thing, and as they're exposed to like all these great, other writers are reading, and as they're sharing their work and getting feedback and figuring out what they really want to say, it changes. So I think sometimes it's good to come with a project, but I think sometimes it may change. I think just being open to how you're going to evolve as a writer and what you're going to learn, and just like being flexible is a big part of it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I never expected to be studying nonfiction when I went into my MFA. And I just, some of you may know, I just published my third nonfiction book. This just came out last month, The Seeker and the Monk. And I always tell people that books like that are like candy to me, because I never expected to be writing like that. I didn't expect to write that book or any nonfiction book. So so to me, that was the magic of the MFA, is learning and being inspired by other people. And it just took me down paths that I did not expect. So stay open, just stay open, and you have no idea where you're going to go with your writing. You will surprise yourself.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for that. It's just that someone early on had said, I thought, oh, they said, maybe it's kind of good to go in with a project that you want to accomplish by the end, or not that you would come in with that, but I'm sitting here thinking, not sure what I would do exactly, but I'd want to work on I have idea, like you said, so, I had some things I want to work on. So that's good to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome. Someone named Reconnecting has a hand up. Who's Reconnecting?
Sorry about that. My name's Joy, and I'm not sure why that's my name on the screen. Not using video right now. I'm so excited to meet all of you. And I have two questions. One is the pages that we submit for the first workshop, is it best if they are one piece or a few different pieces, depending on what we're hoping to develop? And my other question is, will we get a little bit of instruction and guidance about how to provide valuable feedback to other writers in our cohort? Because I've experienced a few writers workshops that really are just, other people writing your stuff. And I don't want to do that to other people because that wouldn't honor their work.
Yeah, I'll let Karen. Karen's nodding there. Karen, I'll let you answer that.
I think learning how to provide constructive feedback is really important. Workshops are actually really great education in communication and how to say something so someone else will hear it. I think, like, for example, I have a sheet that I give students where I help them figure out how to identify what's working, what they like in a piece, in a variety of ways, and then also how to help a writer identify what needs to be developed and what feels familiar or cliched and how to push it. So I think both. I mean, I think the idea is you want feedback that will help the writer keep going, not to stop. And sometimes workshops are the opposite. So yeah, it's a great question.
Karen, I don't know if you know this. I did my graduating lecture on my MFA. It was called No Tears, No Fears, How to Prepare for Workshop. Because it was my mind that nobody should be crying in workshops.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, I think workshops can vary a lot. And I think, the idea is that you want something that will help you. It's interesting as a writer, you want to learn how to listen in this very particular way, which is learning how to absorb what people say, but also learning how to filter it. Not to take everything that everyone says as like, oh, that's true, I must change this, but listening what actually confirms a suspicion in your mind about your work. So that's what I think feedback should do.
And Karen, what about Joy's thoughts about sending one piece for workshop or a couple of different smaller pieces?
I mean, I think that I guess we decide what the page length is for workshop, what people feel that they're able to read. I don't know if that's been set up yet, but if it's usually around 20 pages or so, double spaced, or
like that.
I don't know, how that will work. But and then I guess, I mean, my thought is it's good, to have sort of one piece that you can flesh out, a chapter or a story or an essay. But if you feel like you have space too after the number of pages and you want to include something else short, that can be good too. So however you want to use the time. I mean, I guess the workshop time is for you. So whatever you want to get feedback on. Yeah.
And I know there are accepted students in the room, and I'd already sent an email this week with workshop guidelines, and I can resend that to anyone else who comes on board after, after the deadline as well. Thanks, Joy. And she has her name changed.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Lisa, did you have another question, or is your hand just still raised? You're muted.
I said John's had his hand up, but I'll say it after him.
Okay. Yes, John.
During the program, if somebody wanted to learn more about playwriting, is there an opportunity to work on that or learn some skills in that?
It would depend on one of our faculty member, Jim Daniels. Do you know Jim? He's an Alma alum. He has some experience in screenwriting and I think possibly playwriting as well. So if he may do, if there's enough interest in it, we may have a separate workshop in that if there's interest.
Okay, because I actually, reason why I'm interested is in 1970, when I was at Alma College, I wrote a play, and my best friend roommate, who was a theater major, produced it and directed it on station. So I've always had an interest in playwriting.
I thought you were about to say you wanted to workshop that play that you had written.
Well,
sorry. But that's really cool that you had to produce. It's excellent. Thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, my question, and me too with screenwriting, playwriting, I had taken a class a couple of years ago and have a strong interest in that merging ministry, et cetera, with issues going on with therapy and counseling. But my question, some of the short stories I had shared, with you, what the question, I think the first question for the application wants you to submit, I think it said creative nonfiction or poetry or fiction for up to 25 pages with that.
Fiction or nonfiction. So
Right.
on what you'd like to start off studying. Yeah, you can submit fiction or nonfiction or a poetry selection.
Okay, so I was saying some of the short stories that I wrote with that, and I guess I could talk to you afterwards.
So you mean submitting something from your book?
Right, was that considered?
Yeah, you could do that. So you could
Okay,
you could do that for your application.
right. That's what I was
But
questioning.
I would say but since you've already published that work, you
Mhm.
would have to submit something else for workshop if you get accepted to the program.
Oh, right. But for the application, that's what. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Joy, did you have another question or is your hand just already still up?
I'm sorry. I'm not playing nice with my computer today. It's not up for a reason right now.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? All right, well then, yes.
You mentioned there would be a poetry reading next week. How
Yeah,
will we find out details for that?
Same time, it'll be posted tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Same thing, same type of sign up, and we'll be here again.
Great. Thank you.
So thank you, Melanie. All right, everyone, thank you for being here. Karen, we applaud our instructor for this evening. Thank you, Karen. It was wonderful. And
Thank you all for participating. It was great to hear your insights and your work.
And I hope you will all consider applying, and we are looking forward to reading your work and having you on campus. So take care, have a nice evening, and keep writing. Take care, everyone. Good night.